You wake up tired before the day even starts, not because you worked too hard, but because money is already awake, already waiting, already deciding things for you. It sits on your chest while you brush your teeth. It follows you into traffic. It hums in the background of every conversation while you nod, smile, and calculate bills in your head. You tell yourself this is normal, that this is adulthood, that everyone feels this way. But here's the truth: people avoid because it cuts too close. Money doesn't just pay for things. It controls how much of yourself you're allowed to use. It decides whether you can walk away from work that drains you, or whether you stay quiet and decay because the paycheck owns your voice. It decides if you can say no without fear twisting your stomach. It decides whether you leave a situation that shrinks you or stay because rent, debt, and uncertainty have you pinned. This isn't about laziness or weakness. It's about control. You don't feel poor because your bank account is low. You feel poor because your choices are limited. Poverty isn't just empty numbers on a screen. It's swallowing words you want to say. It's accepting disrespect to keep stability. It's choosing safety over truth again and again until it feels normal. This isn't about getting rich or chasing status. It's about freedom at the most basic level. Because when money decides your moves, your life is no longer fully yours. And the most brutal part is how quietly it happens day by day, while you tell yourself this is just how things are. What you felt before wasn't exhaustion. It was the first symptom of something deeper. When money controls your choices, it doesn't stop there. It follows you into every ordinary moment of your day. Money is not a dream you chase. It is a pressure you wake up under every morning. It doesn't motivate you. It compresses you. It shows up as deadlines blinking on your screen, bills stacked where your peace should be, and a low, constant anxiety humming in your body before the day even begins. You don't think about money because you want luxury. You think about it because it refuses to stay quiet. One missed notification from your boss can change your entire mood. One email from your bank can tighten your chest. One unexpected medical bill can erase months of careful planning in seconds. This is how money actually controls people, not with gold chains, but with invisible threats. Look at someone like James, 42, stable job, responsible, no reckless habits, yet one emergency away from panic. Or Sarah, who checks her bank balance before replying to a simple dinner invitation, because every decision now has a hidden cost attached. This isn't weakness, it's exposure. When money is tight, everything feels urgent. You rush through life. You say yes faster than you want to. You postpone your own needs because survival speaks louder than dignity. Money doesn't ruin lives loudly. It ruins them quietly every morning. It trains you to accept pressure as normal and anxiety as maturity. Over time, your world shrinks. You stop asking what you want and start asking what you can afford, emotionally, mentally, financially. That's the moment money stops being a tool and becomes a leash. And you don't realize how tight it is until you try to move. What begins as daily financial pressure slowly turns into something more dangerous: dependency. And this is exactly where Machiavelli's lens becomes unavoidable. Machiavelli is often misunderstood because people turn him into a villain or a guru, but he was neither. He didn't teach people how to get rich, and he didn't preach ambition or success. He did something far more uncomfortable. He asked one cold, practical question that still decides who wins and who loses today. Who needs who more? That's it. No morality, no motivation, just reality. In every relationship, every workplace, every negotiation, Power tilts toward the person who can walk away. And money is one of the fastest ways that balance is decided. When you don't have enough money, you need people. You need your boss to approve time off. You need clients to say yes. You need a paycheck to arrive on time so your life doesn't fall apart. Need turns into silence. Need turns into patience you didn't choose. Need turns into obedience dressed up as professionalism. But when you have money, even a small buffer, something shifts. You don't need approval as badly. You don't need to tolerate everything. You gain the ability to choose, and choice is power in its purest form. This is why money has never been just about comfort or luxury. It's about leverage. It's about reducing how much you depend on people who can hurt you. Machiavelli wasn't obsessed with wealth. He was obsessed with control, with who holds it and why. This video isn't here to glorify money or promise an easy escape. Its purpose is simpler and more honest. To show you how money quietly shapes power in your life, how dependence keeps you small, and why understanding this dynamic is the first step toward reclaiming your choices instead of surrendering them by default. And this is where Machiavelli's question turns lethal. Because once money decides who needs who more, the lie of just work harder and you'll be free becomes the perfect trap, convincing dependent people to exhaust themselves inside a system that was never designed to let them leave. The most dangerous illusion people live under is simple, comforting, and deadly. Just keep trying, and everything will eventually work out. It sounds responsible. It sounds mature. It sounds like something good people repeat to survive disappointment. But it's wrong. Hard work does not create freedom. It creates endurance. And endurance is not the same thing as control. Millions of people do everything right and still feel trapped. They show up early, stay late, save what they can, avoid risks, follow rules, and wait patiently, and nothing opens. They don't fail loudly. They don't crash. They just remain stuck year after year, quietly wondering why effort never turns into relief. Look at someone like Daniel, 12 years in the same industry. Solid performance, promotions that look good on paper. He did what he was told, built experience, put money into savings, avoided reckless choices. From the outside, he's successful. But ask one honest question. Could he quit tomorrow if he wanted to? The answer is no. Not because he's irresponsible, but because the system he trusted only taught him how to survive, not how to escape. Or think about Maria. 15 years working, never missed a bill, always careful, always dependable. She has savings, but not enough to buy her courage. She stays in a job she hates because stability feels safer than uncertainty. These people aren't lazy. They're loyal to a promise that was never real. The truth is brutal. Hard work keeps you alive, but it does not set you free. It keeps the lights on. It pays rent. It earns approval. But it rarely buys leverage. When all your income depends on showing up, your freedom disappears the moment you stop. That's not independence. That's conditional survival. And the cruel part is how invisible this trap feels while you're inside it. You're praised for being reliable. You're respected for being disciplined. You're told you're doing great. Meanwhile, your options never expand. Your life never gets lighter. You just get better at carrying weight. This is why so many people with 10 or 15 years of experience still don't feel safe. They've saved, but not enough to walk away. They've worked, but not toward ownership. They invested time into something that doesn't belong to them, and deep down, they know it. That's why quitting feels terrifying. That's why imagining a different path triggers panic. Effort kept them alive, but it never bought freedom. It bought dependence with a cleaner label. Effort keeps you alive. Ownership decides how you live. Until something you build continues without you, hard work will keep functioning like a leash. It won't choke you. It will just hold you close enough that you never leave, while you're told to be grateful for the cage. That is why the promise of hard work alone eventually collapses. Because effort without ownership doesn't remove the cage. It only teaches you how to survive inside it. The difference that changes everything is not how much money you make, but where it comes from. A paycheck feels like income, but it is actually permission. Permission to stay. Permission to obey. Permission to keep living the same life as long as you keep showing up. The moment you stop working, the money stops too. And with it, your sense of safety. That is dependency, even if it comes with benefits and polite emails. Now compare that to a source of money you own. A business, a digital product, a piece of content, a system that keeps working after you log off. Ask a question everyone understands without needing an example. If you take a week off, does the money still come in? Or does it freeze immediately? Most people already know the answer. For the majority, income dies the moment they pause. No hours worked, no money earned. That means their life is built on attendance, not control. This is the core difference most people never internalize. A paycheck rewards presence. A source rewards ownership. When you rely on a paycheck, you live on approval. You wait for reviews. You worry about restructures. You stay quiet when things feel wrong because stability feels fragile. Your income depends on being needed, not being free. But when you own even a small source, something shifts. The pressure eases. You negotiate differently. You don't rush to please. You choose instead of react. This is why effort alone fails so many people. They work hard inside systems they do not own, then wonder why freedom never arrives. Income that requires constant permission is not income. It is a lease on your time. If money stops when you stop, you don't have income, you have permission. And permission can be revoked without warning. Owning a source does not mean quitting tomorrow or gambling everything. It means building something that survives your absence. Something that compounds instead of resetting to zero every morning. A channel, a tool, a product, a process. This is how control is created quietly, not by working more hours, but by changing the direction of effort. The people who escape are not the most exhausted. They are the ones who stopped asking how to earn more and started asking what they could own. That single question draws the line between dependency and control. That is why so many people feel busy, but powerless. They are earning, not owning, moving, not building. Every raise feels good for a moment, then fades, because the structure never changed. Control never appeared. The goal here is not fantasy or shortcuts. It is clarity. See the difference. Choose accordingly. Build one source you own. Let it grow. Then watch how your decisions, your tone, and your life begin to change. Ownership rewrites the rules without asking permission from anyone. When you move from earning to owning, you stop pushing inside the flow and start choosing where you stand. And that shift in position is what determines whether money keeps passing you by or begins to collect around you. Fear is the most effective tool ever used to keep people in place, and it works precisely because it feels personal. You think you're afraid because you're cautious, responsible, realistic. But fear isn't a flaw in you. It's a system that learned how to run quietly inside your head. Fear of trying something new, fear of doing it wrong, fear of being laughed at, judged, dismissed. None of these fears shout. They whisper. They sound reasonable. They tell you to wait, to be prepared, to think a little longer. And while you're thinking, nothing changes. Most people don't stay broke because they lack ideas or intelligence. They stay broke because fear convinces them to delay action just long enough for life to lock in. You see it everywhere. Someone wants to start something small, a side project, a business, a skill they could sell, but fear steps in wearing logic. What if it fails? What if people think it's stupid? What if you embarrass yourself? So they stay quiet. They keep their heads down. They keep doing what feels safe, even when safe is slowly suffocating them. This fear isn't weakness, it's conditioning. It's how order is maintained. A population that fears mistakes doesn't challenge rules. People who fear judgment don't stand out. People who fear looking foolish don't experiment. Fear keeps everyone predictable, and predictable people are easy to manage. That's why fear is cheaper than chains. Chains require force. Fear does the job voluntarily. You police yourself. You stop yourself. You don't need anyone to say no, because you already did it for them. Think about how often fear disguises itself as maturity. You call it being responsible when you don't try. You call it being humble when you don't promote yourself. You call it patience when you're really just scared to move. Meanwhile, years pass. Bills increase, energy drops, and the window for risk quietly narrows. Fear doesn't ruin your life in one dramatic moment. It erodes it through 1,000 small hesitations. People who break out aren't fearless. They just learned something others didn't. Fear never goes away. You don't conquer it. You outgrow listening to it. They realize that being laughed at is cheaper than staying stuck. That failing in public hurts less than failing quietly for decades. That judgment fades faster than regret. The people who stay trapped wait for fear to disappear. The people who move understand it never will. Fear is cheaper than chains. That's why it works. It convinces you that staying where you are is safer than finding out who you could become. It teaches you to confuse comfort with security and silence with stability. And as long as fear controls your decisions, money will always feel out of reach, because fear doesn't just stop action. It keeps you dependent. Dependent on approval. Dependent on permission. Dependent on a life that never expands beyond what feels acceptable. The moment you see fear for what it is, not a warning, but a control mechanism, something shifts. You stop waiting to feel ready. You stop waiting to feel brave. You act anyway. And that single shift is where poverty begins to lose its grip. Not because you became reckless, but because you stopped letting fear decide your future. Fear is what keeps most people locked inside the flow. Because once you're afraid of standing out, you automatically accept whatever position you're given. Money doesn't move toward effort the way people are taught to believe. It doesn't chase exhaustion. It doesn't reward how tired you feel at the end of the day. Money follows position. Picture traffic during rush hour. Thousands of cars packed tightly together, engines burning, moving inch by inch. Everyone is trying. Everyone is frustrated. Everyone feels busy. That's how most people approach money. They stay in the lane they were assigned. They match the speed around them. They follow signals they didn't design and assume that moving at all means they're making progress. But movement inside traffic just keeps you inside traffic. Now shift your view slightly. Along that same road, someone owns the toll booth. They aren't driving. They aren't late. They aren't stressed. Every car that passes feeds them automatically. Same road, same volume, completely different outcome. One group spends energy. The other controls position. This is the part fear never wants you to notice. Fear teaches you to stay in line, to blend in, to keep moving with everyone else so you're never exposed. But staying in the flow means you never question the structure of the road itself. Most people spend their lives trying to go faster inside systems they don't control. They add hours. They stack responsibilities. They push harder in the same direction as everyone else and wonder why nothing changes. Effort feels productive, but effort without position just makes you tired in public. Money doesn't reward how much you move. It rewards where you stand. Look at how this plays out in everyday life. People compete for raises instead of controlling outcomes. They chase promotions instead of leverage. They fight for slightly better spots inside roles that were designed with ceilings. Meanwhile, others step just a little to the side and build something connected to demand. A service people already need. A product tied to attention. A platform that sits where decisions are made. They aren't smarter. They aren't luckier. They're positioned differently. Two people can work equally hard and end up worlds apart because one stays inside the stream and the other captures the flow. One reacts, one collects, one burns energy, one owns access. The internet made this pattern impossible to hide. Attention moves, demand moves, money follows both. Some people scroll endlessly, others publish. Some people consume, others control distribution. Same traffic, different roles. Exhaustion is not proof of progress. It's often proof you're standing in the wrong place. If money only shows up when you push harder, your position is weak. If it disappears the moment you pause, you're not placed well. That's not a judgment. It's mechanics. Money follows placement, not exhaustion. This doesn't mean reckless quitting or chasing shortcuts. It means asking a sharper question than fear allows. Where is money already moving? And what role am I playing inside that movement? Am I just another car? Or am I connected to the flow itself? Workers think in terms of effort. Builders think in terms of access. Owners think in terms of choke points. Controllers think in terms of position. The moment you stop asking how to work harder and start asking where to stand, money starts behaving differently around you. Not because you became more driven, but because you finally stepped out of traffic and chose your position instead of inheriting it. Once you step out of the flow and choose a position instead of just moving with traffic, the reaction doesn't wait for your results. It shows up immediately in the people around you. The moment you start making more money, even slightly more, something uncomfortable happens long before any visible success appears. People don't clap, they watch. They get quiet. They make jokes that don't land the same way. Comments slip out that sound casual, but carry a sharp edge. You're really focused on money now. You've changed. You're not the same person anymore. These labels don't come from what you own or what you show. They come from the shift in how you move. When you begin to earn more, you also begin to need less. Less approval, less tolerance, less permission. You stop rushing to explain yourself. You stop panicking when plans fall apart. You stop accepting every demand just to keep things smooth. And that subtle independence is what unsettles people. Not because you became greedy, but because you became harder to control. The version of you that needed the paycheck, needed validation, needed stability at any cost was easy to predict. The version of you with options is not. So people reframe the story. They call your boundaries selfish. They call your focus obsession. They frame your discipline as coldness. What they're really reacting to is the loss of leverage. When you relied on them, they felt important. When you no longer do, they feel irrelevant. Independence breaks invisible agreements that were never spoken out loud. It exposes relationships built on convenience instead of respect. This backlash almost always arrives before success because people feel position shifts before they see outcomes. You haven't bought anything impressive. You haven't announced a win. All you did was move differently. You paused instead of rushing. You said no without apologizing. You chose instead of reacting. And that alone is enough to trigger resistance. Your independence feels like betrayal to people who benefited from your limits. That truth is uncomfortable, but it's necessary. Many people retreat here. They slow down. They explain themselves. They return to old habits to restore harmony. Not because they were wrong, but because approval felt safer than isolation. The ones who keep going learn something critical. You cannot reduce dependence without disturbing dynamics. You cannot change position without making others uncomfortable. And you cannot step out of traffic without being noticed. Money doesn't just give you options, it reveals structure. It shows you who respected you and who merely tolerated you while you were manageable. This phase is unavoidable. The question is not whether people will react. The question is whether you will mistake their discomfort for a sign to stop, or recognize it as proof that your position has already changed. The backlash you felt earlier was not random. It was the first signal that your position was shifting beneath the surface. When people react before your results appear, it's because real wealth begins internally, long before it ever becomes visible. Wealth is one of the most misunderstood words in modern life because people confuse its symbols with its substance. Cars, houses, status, flex. Those things are loud, easy to notice, and easy to envy. But they are not the core. They are reflections, not foundations. Real wealth shows up in a place most people never look. It shows up in how calm you remain when numbers fluctuate, when income becomes unpredictable, when certainty disappears. Wealth is not what you buy when everything goes right. It is how steady you stay when things don't. Watch how people respond the moment financial pressure enters the room. A delayed payment triggers panic. A slow month causes anxiety. An unexpected expense collapses confidence. Sleep becomes shallow. Decisions become rushed. Fear quietly reclaims control. That reaction reveals the truth. The lifestyle may look stable, but the foundation is fragile. That isn't wealth. That's exposure. Real wealth reduces that exposure. It doesn't eliminate risk. It reduces how much risk can emotionally damage you. This is why two people with the same income can live completely different inner lives. One feels hunted by numbers. The other feels buffered. One checks accounts compulsively. The other glances and moves on. One negotiates from fear. The other negotiates from patience. The difference is not spending power. It is emotional stability under pressure. Wealth is the ability to remain calm when income fluctuates, when plans change, when the future isn't clearly mapped out. People chase money believing it will finally make them feel safe. But safety does not come from more zeros. It comes from reduced dependency, fewer points of failure, more room to breathe. When you are wealthy in the real sense, volatility no longer owns you. You don't accept bad deals out of panic. You don't stay where you don't belong just to maintain appearances. You don't explain yourself excessively to preserve comfort. Your nervous system stays steady, and that steadiness becomes leverage. This is also why public flexing is often the opposite of wealth. Loud displays usually hide quiet insecurity. When someone needs constant proof that they are doing well, it is often because internally they are not. Real wealth does not need witnesses. It does not rush to be seen. It values privacy over applause and control over validation. It buys options, not attention. And options change everything. Options let you wait. They let you walk away. They let you choose timing instead of reacting to pressure. Under financial stress, most people become smaller. They compromise values. They accept disrespect. They silence themselves. Wealth reverses that dynamic. Not because it makes you superior, but because it removes urgency. Urgency shrinks people. Calm expands them. When you can remain composed while others rush, you see clearer. You decide better. You avoid traps built on fear. That calm is not personality. It is position. Wealth is emotional stability under financial pressure. It is waking up without dread, even when tomorrow is uncertain. It is knowing that instability will not break you. Cars age, houses depreciate, flex fades quickly. But the ability to remain steady while the ground shifts is what truly separates those who feel free from those who merely look successful. That is real wealth. And it changes how you move through the world long before it changes what the world sees. At this point, there is nothing left to motivate you and nothing left to sell you. You already know what the problem is. You felt it in your body, in your choices, in the way hesitation keeps showing up at the worst moments. This was never about ambition or greed. It was about control. About how often your life asks for permission before it moves. About how many decisions are quietly made for you by numbers you pretend not to think about. So here is the only question that matters, and it is not a comfortable one. If nothing changes, if you keep earning but never owning, if you keep moving but never choosing your position, where does that lead you? 5 years from now, 10 years from now, will your world expand, or will it simply repeat with better excuses and deeper fatigue? This is not a call to action. There is nothing to rush into. There is only clarity. Clarity that money is not the goal, but dependence is the danger. Clarity that effort without control leads to exhaustion, not freedom. And clarity that no one is coming to loosen the grip for you. Money won't make you powerful, but without it, you will always need permission.